Ekemma and the River Goddess. A story in 8 chapters. The sun, a malevolent orb in the sky, beat down on the Purewold and the village of Abeni with the fury of 1,000 suns. It was a relentless furnace, baking the earth until it cracked and split, revealing the parched, dusty innards of the land. The once lush fields, vibrant with life and promise, were now desolate, their brown, withered stalks a mournful testament to the merciless drought that had gripped Abeni for months. The fields, once a canvas of emerald green, were now a desolate landscape of brown, withered stalks, or a grim reminder of the relentless sun's cruel reign. The air hung thick, a suffocating blanket of heat and despair, or even the wind, which usually brought a sigh of relief, felt stagnant, laden with the smell of dust and the whispered anxieties of the villagers. The children played listlessly, their laughter strained and hollow, their eyes reflecting the grim reality of their situation. The once joyful shouts of children playing in the fields were replaced by the hushed whispers of fear and the hollow echoes of their sorrow. Emma, a young girl with eyes as bright as the midday sun, a fire of hope burning in their depths, watched with a heavy heart as her mother, Amaka, struggled to coax a meager harvest from the turf of the dying soil. Her small hands, calloused from years of toil, gripped the edge of the field, her gaze lost in the shimmering haze of the heat. The sun, like a relentless tyrant, seemed to mock their efforts, its scorching rays baking their hope into the parched earth. Even the birds, once a symphony of song, were silent, their voices choked by the suffocating heat and the pervasive sense of despair. The village elders, their faces etched with worry, spoke of the river goddess, a powerful entity who ruled over the river that once flowed through Abeni, bringing life and sustenance. And the river, once a ribbon of silver, a lifeline to the village, was now a mere scar on the earth, a silent testament to the cruelty of the drought. The water had vanished, leaving behind a bed of cracked, sun-baked clay, a grim reminder of what they had lost. The once vibrant river, a source of life and joy, now lay desolate, a chilling symbol of their dwindling hope. Rumors and whispers circulated like a plague through the village. Tales of the river goddess's wraith, stories of her punishment for their transgressions. Some spoke of forgotten rituals, of sacrifices left unmade, of a balance disrupted, a pact broken. Fear and superstition choked the village, a constant shadow lurking behind their every thought. The villagers, haunted by the fear of the unseen, whispered stories of forgotten rituals and broken promises, their eyes darting nervously at the slightest rustle of leaves or the faintest flicker of shadow. Emma, however, clung to a flicker of hope, a belief that the goddess, in her wisdom, would hear their pleas. She envisioned the river goddess, a majestic figure draped in flowing water, her eyes filled with the the compassion of the river itself. She imagined the goddess remembering the village of Abeni, the land that had once embraced her with love and reverence. Ekemma's hope was a flickering flame, a fragile ember against the suffocating darkness of despair. The villagers despaired, but Ekemma, in the face of the sun's fury and the village's despair, held on to her hope. She clung to the belief that the river goddess would see their suffering, that she would remember her promise to Abeni, and that she would, in her infinite mercy, restore the river's flow, bringing back life and hope to their parched land. Emma, with the unwavering conviction of youth, refused to succumb to the despair that threatened to engulf them all. She clung to her belief, a beacon of hope in the face of the sun's relentless fury. Emma's father, Azuka, a strong, resourceful man with calloused hands and a kind heart, had gone to the neighboring village in search of water. He had left behind a palpable silence, a void that weighed heavily on Ekemma's young shoulders. Days turned into weeks, the sun's fury unabated. Azuka had not returned, and fear gnawed Ekemma's heart. She worried about her father, about his safety, about his ability to find water for the village. One evening, as the last rays of the sun painted the sky in hues of orange and purple, Emma sat by the dried-up riverbed, her gaze lost in the swirling dust. A single tear rolled down her cheek, reflecting the dying light. "Why, river goddess?" she whispered, her voice barely audible above the wind. "Why have you forsaken us?" A shiver ran down her spine, a feeling of something ancient and powerful stirring around her. The whisper of the wind carried a scent of damp earth, and something else, something inexplicable. The dust swirled around Ekemma's feet, a miniature desert storm in the dying light. It was as if the very earth mourned with her, its parched throat mirroring the ache in her own. Her gaze lingered on the cracked riverbed, once a vibrant ribbon of life, now a testament to the cruel hand of the sun. It was a symbol of her own loss, the emptiness that gnawed at her heart. Azuka, her father, was a pillar of their village, his strength a source of comfort, and his laughter a beacon in the harsh sun. He had gone in search of water, a vital lifeline for their fair community, leaving behind a silence that felt like a physical absence, a heavy cloak draped over the village's soul. Days had melted into weeks, each sunrise a fresh stab of worry. The sun beat down relentlessly, its fiery breath scorching the earth, its rays scorching the hope in Ekemma's heart. She had watched the other villagers grow gaunt, their eyes reflecting the desperation that mirrored her own. And now, as the sky bled into fiery hues of orange and purple, a painful reminder of the life-giving water that was now just a memory, Ekemma sat by the riverbed, tears tracing a path through the dust on her cheeks. "Why, river goddess?" she whispered, her voice a mere sigh against the wind. "Why have you forsaken us?" The words, heavy with despair, floated on the wind, carrying the ache of her fear, the weight of her helplessness. A shiver danced down her spine, the air around her thick with a palpable presence. It felt as if something ancient, powerful, and unseen had stirred in response to her plea. A scent of damp earth, a whiff of something inexplicable, drifted on the wind, carrying a whisper of hope. Perhaps, just perhaps, the river goddess hadn't forgotten them. Just maybe, she would hear their plea. Driven by a strange compulsion, Ekemma followed the whisper of the wind towards the eastern edge of the village. The wind, a mischievous spirit, danced through the tall grasses, tugging at her hair and whispering secrets she couldn't quite understand. It beckoned her onward, an insistent, alluring voice promising answers she desperately sought. The sun beat down mercilessly, turning the dusty path to a shimmering mirage, but Ekemma pressed on, her heart a drum against her ribs. She had been drawn to the whispers since the day her mother, Abeni, had succumbed to the fever that swept through the village. Abeni, with her infectious laughter and hands that always seemed to be kneading dough or weaving baskets, had been the heart of their family. Her absence had left a gaping hole in Ekemma's world, a silence so profound that it echoed in her bones. The whispers, faint at first, had grown louder, more persistent, urging her to seek solace in the unknown. And now, finally, she stood before its source. There, beneath a giant baobab tree, its gnarled roots reaching out like grasping hands, stood a small, ornate shrine, its once bright colors dulled by the unforgiving sun. The shrine, shrouded in an almost sacred stillness, seemed to exude an ancient wisdom, its very presence a palpable entity. Ekemma had never seen the shrine before, but a strange familiarity washed over her, as if she had always known it was there, waiting for her arrival. The feeling was unsettling, a dissonance between the unknown and the strangely familiar, that left her with goosebumps on her arms. She cautiously approached, her steps light and her heart pounding like a frantic bird trapped in a cage. As she reached the shrine, she saw a small silver goblet placed before a statue carved in the likeness of a woman with flowing hair and a serene smile. The woman, her face weathered by time, yet retaining an undeniable beauty, held a large clay pot in one hand, its surface adorned with intricate carvings of water lilies and fish. The woman's gaze seemed to pierce Ekemma's very soul, an unsettling mixture of sadness and wisdom. The wind picked up again, carrying with it the scent of water and the faint echo of a woman's voice. It was the scent of rain, the kind that fell in sheets, washing away the dust and grime of the world, bringing with it a promise of renewal. Ekemma listened intently, her eyes fixed on the statue, her breath catching in her throat. "Ekemma, child of Abeni," the voice whispered, soft as the rustling leaves, yet carrying a weight that seemed to vibrate through her very being. "I am the river goddess. You have called to me in your sorrow, and I have heard you." Ekemma, paralyzed with fear and awe, could only nod her head. The voice, a comforting melody in the midst of the chaos in her heart, washed over her like the gentle caress of the river she had dreamed of as a child. Her fear, though still present, was slowly being replaced by a sense of anticipation, a hope that just maybe, this ancient spirit could offer her the solace she so desperately craved. "The drought has been a trial," the voice continued, its tone echoing with a sense of ancient wisdom, like the rustling of leaves in a forgotten grove. But it is not a punishment. It is a reminder that life is a precious gift, and that we must respect the balance of nature. The air hung thick with anticipation, the only sound the gentle creak of the ancient willow that stood sentinel over the small clearing. Ekemma, a young girl with eyes as bright as the midday sun and hair the color of river reeds, felt the weight of the words settle upon her. She had heard whispers of the river goddess, stories spun by her grandmother, tales of a being who ruled the river with a gentle hand, bringing life and prosperity to their village, but she had never truly believed. Now, staring into the face of a drought that threatened to consume their lives, she understood the goddess's power and her own village's negligence. The river's flow has dwindled, its lifeblood drying, the voice continued, the air swirling around Ekemma, a sign that we have taken more than we have given. The words, soft as the breath of the wind, pierced through her young heart. The truth, as undeniable as the cracks in the parched earth, was that her village had neglected the land, their greed for the river's bounty eclipsing their responsibility for its well-being. They had forgotten the ancient rituals, the songs and offerings that kept the river goddess appeased. To restore the river's flow, the voice continued, its whisper carrying the weight of an ancient prophecy. You must find the hidden spring. It lies deep within the heart of the forest, guarded by the spirits of the wild. Only a pure heart, untouched by greed, can reach it. Emma felt a shiver run down her spine, a mixture of fear and determination. The forest, a place of whispering shadows and unseen eyes, was a place of mystery and legend, a realm of ancient spirits that few dared to enter. But the thought of her village, her father, his weary face etched with despair, fueled her courage. She had to find the spring. She had to appease the river goddess. She had to bring life back to their parched land. The voice, faint as a distant echo, seemed to fade, leaving Ekemma alone in the silent clearing. She looked at the willow, its branches swaying gently in the wind, as if encouraging her. She knew what she had to do. She would find the hidden spring, and she would prove herself worthy of the river goddess's grace. Her village's fate, and her own, rested on her young shoulders. And she would not fail. Ekemma, her heart thrumming with newfound purpose, stood on the riverbank, the words of the river goddess echoing in her mind. The air was thick with the scent of water lilies and the soft hum of the flowing water, a symphony that resonated with the burgeoning strength within her. The goddess's pronouncements, a beacon in the darkness of her doubts, had ignited a fire in her soul. She knew, with an unwavering certainty, what she had to do. She turned away from the river, her gaze fixed on the familiar path that led to her village. The thatched roofs of the homes, nestled amongst the lush greenery, were a comforting sight. But today, her heart was no longer anchored to their familiarity. Today, she was called to something greater, a journey that promised both peril and promise. Emma's footsteps were lighter, her stride more purposeful. She was no longer the girl who had once felt trapped by the constraints of her village, bound by tradition and expectations. She was Ekemma, chosen by the river goddess, destined for something extraordinary. She sought out her mother, a woman whose wisdom and love had always been her anchor, the one person she could confide in, the one person who would understand. Emma's mother was tending to a basket full of wild herbs in front of their house. Her eyes filled with worry when she saw Ekemma approaching. "Daughter," she said, "why is your face so gloomy?" Emma sat down before her mother and took a deep breath. "Mother," she said, "I spoke to the river goddess." Her mother's eyes widened in surprise. "The river goddess? That's impossible. It's just a story." "No, mother," said Ekemma. "It was real. She chose me. She gave me a task." Ekemma recounted the river goddess's words to her mother. Her mother listened in silence, feeling the tears of worry welling up in Ekemma's eyes. Then she asked, "How can you do this, daughter? It's too dangerous." Ekemma replied, "I don't know, mother, but I have to do it. The river goddess said this task will save the world." Her mother remained silent for a while. Then she said, "Then you must go. Hey, my greatest concern is your safety. But if you believe this is what you must do, I won't stop you." Emma saw both pride and sadness in her mother's eyes. "Thank you, mother," she said. "Your support means the world to me." Ekemma bid farewell to her mother and left the village. She followed the path shown to her by the river goddess, passing through mountains and forests. Her journey was long and arduous, but Ekemma remained steadfast. Her faith in the river goddess kept her going. Finally, Ekemma reached the cave the river goddess had shown her. The cave was dark and eerie, but Ekemma pushed down her fear and entered. Deep within the cave, Ekemma saw a magical light. She walked towards the source of the light and came to the edge of a lake. As she looked into the lake, she saw her own reflection in the water. But it was no longer an ordinary face. It was a face filled with power and beauty, a face bestowed upon her by the river goddess. Ekemma remembered the river goddess's words. "You are the one who will save the world," the goddess had said. "Find your strength and illuminate the darkness." Ekemma dipped her hand into the lake water. The cold water grounded her. Then, Ekemma felt the power the river goddess had bestowed upon her. It burned within her heart like a blazing fire. Ekemma set out to save the world. Like a powerful current, she illuminated the darkness and fought against evil. Her journey was challenging, but Ekemma, using the power the river goddess had given her, overcame every obstacle. In the end, Ekemma saved the world from darkness. And from that day forward, everyone remembered Ekemma as the hero chosen by the river goddess, the one who saved the world.